They were doing like chugs with sweet picking and these long, complicated songs, all while wearing like puffy vests and flat brim hats. The world was just not ready. What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA, and welcome to Volume 2 of Bands That Should Have Been Bigger. In this series, I talk about, guess what, bands that I think should have been bigger. And for each one of these bands, I talk about why I like them, why I think they had potential, and then lastly, some guesses at why they didn't live up to that potential. So let's get into it. Band number 1, Winds of Plague. In the comments of the last episode of this, somebody accused me of just talking about my friend's band. So full disclosure, yes, I've known these guys for about 10 years, but I loved the band before I ever knew them. And like a lot of bands I talk about on this list, it's not like they were a failure. They were a successful band. You know, they were on Century Media. They sold a lot of records. At one point, they were even bigger than Suicide Silence. It's just that I think they could have been even bigger. So as far as why I like them, I mean, man, they're just so fucking good. It's like Dimmu Borgir with hardcore vocals. How could I not like that? Musically, to me, they're just like so much better than everybody in deathcore. They were doing so much interesting shit that I think just went way over everybody's head. Like if you listen to The Great Stone War, their album that came out in I think 2010, that's just like a great progressive metal album that for some reason people just weren't into it. If it came out now, maybe it'd be different, I don't know. But yeah, musically, they're just so good. Like just this great combination of like deathcore with like progressive elements, and they're hardcore kids. And one little piece of trivia, at least on their first several albums, they played in E, so that just goes to show that you don't have to tune to like drop Z to be heavy. Although I do love bands that tune to drop Z. So as far as why they didn't get bigger, I think there are 3 reasons. Number 1 is they were just ahead of their time. I mean, they came out in like 2007, 2008, just they were doing like chugs with sweet picking and these long, complicated songs, all while wearing like puffy vests and flat brim hats. The world was just not ready. Basically, they were too metal for the hardcore kids, too hardcore for the metal crowd, and honestly, I think that's the biggest factor why they didn't get bigger, because of the way they look. Like metal was the right place for them. That's the scene they belonged, even though they were hardcore kids. But because they didn't look like metal guys, metal was just never going to accept them. And there were also the usual like personal problems. This person didn't get along with that person and all that shit that kind of held things back. But the good news is these guys are all doing great. The band still plays. It's like a pretty different lineup, but they're still playing. The drummer, Art Cruz, has played for a bunch of bands, including Prong, and he actually just filled in for Chris Adler and Lamb of God recently, which is like about as good as it gets for drummers, right? The old bassist Andrew Glover just got his MBA and he's doing consulting now. The current guitarist Michael Montoya, who used to play in the band Goliath, he is also a hip-hop producer who's worked with some just top of the fucking food chain rappers. He's produced for like Lil Xan, Bones, Scarlxrd. He is doing cool shit. I don't know, I kind of want to do a whole video about Winds of Plague. Let me know in the comments if that would be interesting to you guys. 2 things I left out of my little Winds of Plague, where are they now update. Number 1, John, the singer, is like a, I guess, famous haunted house designer now, which is really cool to see. He gets like thousands of people to hear him talk about designing haunted houses, so that's pretty cool. And then Nick Aish, the former guitarist, has a tax prep company with his dad. He actually did my 1099s a couple years ago. So 2 more people from Winds of Plague doing well. Good to hear.
Let's get fucked up and die. I'm speaking figuratively, of course, like the last time that I committed suicide. Social suicide.
Band number 2, Motion City Soundtrack. If you don't know these guys, they're like a pop punk kind of band that started in the early 2000s, and they've put out, I think, like 5 albums or something. They're still around, but kind of like a lot of these other bands, they just never really broke through. They never got the respect that, in my opinion, they deserve. I think they should be mentioned in the same sentence as like an Alkaline Trio or Jimmy World, or, you know, these sort of highly respected legendary bands. I think Motion City Soundtrack belongs there because their songs are fucking awesome. They have some of the best lyrics you will ever read. In fact, the lyrics are so good that sometimes I honestly just can't handle listening to it because it just hits too close to home. For example, Even If It Kills Me or Point of Extinction, like there's some like really heavy dark shit in those lyrics, but the songs are also so catchy and poppy. I don't know, I think it's a pretty awesome combination. And by the way, side note, how like 2004 is the cover of Commit This to Memory. It just screams like Urban Outfitters 2004 bootcut jeans. As far as why they didn't get bigger, honestly, my guess is they were just too fucking fucking dark. You know, there are dark bands in the genre, like say Alkaline Trio, but I think they're kind of dark in like a brooding, romantic, cool Jack Kerouac kind of way. Motion City soundtrack is just fucking dark and bleak. There is nothing cute or fun or romantic about it. Like songs about kicking meth and literally just wanting to die to escape the pain of being alive, that's not cute. That's not romantic. That's not fun. Songs like Let's Get Fucked Up and Die, that's not just like a witty song title. He actually meant that. And that's something that's probably just a little too real for most people to relate to, and that's a good thing. I hope you don't relate to that. So yeah, from what I understand, they are still around. They're still playing some shows. I believe Justin has been clean and sober for a few years now, which is good to hear because he seems like a good dude. Band number 3 is ABACABB. I don't actually know very much about these guys other than their name is like the Sega Genesis blood code for Mortal Kombat or whatever it is. But yeah, they were like a very early deathcore band. I actually found out about them through one of those like top 10 deathcore breakdowns that go hard videos or whatever on YouTube back in like 2008 or whenever it was. And that album, Survivalist, is fucking heavy as fuck. It is one of those albums that's so fucking heavy that like it's almost too much at times, and I never say that, right? Like there's nothing that's too heavy for me to listen to, but there's just something about that album that is just so like fucking relentless that sometimes after like a song and a half I'm like, I can't take any more of this. I tap out, which is a good thing. The other thing that's interesting to them is that they very clearly, whoever played guitar for them was clearly like an actual metal dude or a hardcore kid that liked real metal, whatever. Like those are real metal riffs. This is not like back then, you know, so many of those deathcore bands just played essentially breakdowns and or like shitty at the gates riffs. Whoever played guitar in ABACABB knew what they were doing. Those are some great riffs, and holy mother of fucking God is that album heavy. As far as why they didn't get bigger, well, I don't know. I think they probably didn't really try. I don't know that much about them, but I don't think they toured very much. I don't think they really tried especially hard to promote themselves. I feel like everybody who has ever heard ABACABB loves them, so if they had tried a little bit harder, they probably could have gotten bigger, but I don't know, maybe somebody else can tell me in the comments here, somebody who knows a little bit more about the band than I do. So yeah, I don't really know why they didn't get bigger, but fucking Christ, that album is a fucking crusher. If you are into like Demolisher or the Acacia Strain or old Emmure, definitely check out ABACABB. Band number 4 is Cynic. Cynic is one of the very first, most pioneering, groundbreaking, progressive death metal bands. They started in, I think, 87 and put out their first album in, I believe, 92. It's called Focus, and if you listen to it now, it is just mind-blowing how good it was, especially for that time. Cynic had some success and they are recognized, but I feel like they don't get nearly the credit they deserve for being as influential as they were. These guys pretty much pioneered progressive metal as we know it today. Like there would be no Born of Osiris, there would be no Periphery, there would be no Fallujah without Cynic. As one example of that, they wrote a song called Veil of Maya, and well, you know, guess where the band got their name. So in my opinion, these guys really should be mentioned like side by side with Death as far as like the pioneers of progressive metal, partly because two of them played on the most influential Death album. And by the way, they were like 19 or 20 when they played on that thing. Which brings me to why they did not get bigger. Well, for one, it's because they were kids who I think had no real idea what they were doing and had a lot of personal problems going on. And second, like a lot of these bands I mentioned, they were so fucking ahead of their time, like 15 or 20 years ahead of their time. Like listen to Focus, and aside from the recording maybe being a little bit rough, tell me that couldn't be a Fallujah album that came out last year. And again, these guys were 19 or 20 when they recorded that fucking album with no click track, mostly live to tape. That is fucking insane. That's how good these guys are. And now playing like jazzy progressive metal is like a pretty familiar thing, but back then people had no fucking idea what to do with it. These poor kids had to tour with Cannibal Corpse of all bands, getting bottles thrown at them and shit. It was not fun to be Cynic back then. So anyway, I think it is just a cosmic injustice that these guys are not mentioned more often. If you are at all into progressive metal, go back and listen to everything they've ever done, starting with their first album, Focus. Band And number 5 is Glass Cloud. Now, I don't know a ton about this band other than they were on Equal Vision. Josh Travis from Tony Danza, Tap Dance, Extravaganza, and now Emmure played guitar. And the singer was Jerry Roush, who was in Sky Eats Airplane and also in Of Mice and Men for like 2 weeks. They have an EP that came out in 2013, which is just like the fucking perfection of the Black Tongue, or maybe more specifically the Varials kind of sound. That like super down-tuned 9-string like groove kind of style. These guys just fucking do it better than anybody. I mean, a big part of that is because it's Josh Travis and he is the fucking god of this style. He has magic in his fingers and anything he touches is amazing. Listen to like the new Emmure stuff that he's played on. Even if you don't like the band, listen to his playing. It is just out of this fucking world. Jerry's vocals also just, they are perfect in my opinion. He has like just this rawness and energy and aggression that's missing from a lot of these bands that just sound like a big guy, you know, grunting. Like, but Jerry sounds like he is trapped in a fucking cage and he's like yelling and screaming and trying to rip the bars apart with his bare hands. He is just like a ball of fucking energy. As far as why they didn't get bigger, I don't know. I really have no idea. I don't know anything about the band. Everybody in the band is a pro who had been in other successful bands before, and their music was great, so I figured there was something else going on behind the scenes. People didn't get along or personal problems, I don't know, but they just kind of really never went anywhere. But if you like this style, if you're into like that Varials or Emmure or any of that like groovy, super down-tuned stuff, definitely check out the EP. I forget the name of it, but it has a red cover. It's on Spotify. The song Trapped Like Rats, it is just, All right, so that is 5 bands that I think should have been bigger. I want to hear from you guys. What bands do you think should have been bigger? Tell me in the comments. And if you found this video interesting, if you thought it was entertaining or informative, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel. That is the #1 thing I would love for you to do. If you're already subscribed or you do not want to subscribe for some misguided reason, please like the video, leave a comment, share it with a friend. Anything you can do to help spread the word would be very much appreciated. And with that, I'm going to sign off for now, but I will see you next time.